Can I talk to the people on screen? Can the people on screen hear me?
Yeah, we sure can.
Welcome, screen people. Thank you. And a special thanks to BJ for pioneering this. We went out and got a real AV IT guy, so you don't have to respond to me anymore. So, welcome everybody. This is our attempt to get back in person to the Cannabis Lab regular events. Thank you all for coming out. We have some people that are attending here in person. We have panelists that are attending via Zoom from all across the country. And then we have some other people that are sitting in their underwear eating Cheetos watching us as well. So thank you everyone for coming. We have a great facility here. I want to welcome Dan Sparks to tell us why we're here.
Yeah. Fun. Thanks everybody for coming. Billionaire Brands was kind enough to let us host our event here. We're in Fort Lauderdale and New River, and we're here to talk about starting a cannabis brand. So happy to be here and glad to see everybody. Thank you.
Could have wrote that down. All right, so we got a great program tonight. I don't want to take up too much time because we do have a large panel and we have some great panelists here. So we have brands that are all multi-state brands with Old Pal, Binsk, and Heisman. Three great brands, if I do say so myself, great people in the industry. And then we also have Duree and Diana, who are here as well, who work with multiple cannabis brands across all spectrums. So I think we have an amazing panel. And somehow Sean is here with us as well too. So he takes great notes. No, so Sean is an attorney, he works with many brands as well too. So folks, Sean, I will turn it over to you. You're in great hands with him, and enjoy our brands panel.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it. So as Todd was kind enough to introduce me, I'm Sean Coyle. I'm a partner at Fox Rothschild. And with me this evening, both in person and over Zoom, are Duree Ross, founder of Duree & Co., a public relations firm and marketing firm servicing clients within and outside of the cannabis space. We also have via Zoom Elise McDonough, brand manager at Binsk. It's a cannabis products company and brand with a national footprint. We also have Diana San Miguel to my right, co-founder of Canna Curious Magazine, a digital women's magazine showcasing the ways cannabis can enhance a woman's lifestyle. Via Zoom, we have Kendra Stocking, VP of Sales at Old Pal, which is also a cannabis products company and brand that you can find nationally. And last but not least, we have Eric Hammond, CEO of Heisman, which is a cannabis lifestyle and products brand many of you may know from its association with its co-founder, Ricky Williams. Thank you, Todd. And with that, I think we'd like to open up the discussion around how people came into cannabis, how cannabis relates in terms of branding to areas outside of cannabis. So the first question for the panel, and if anybody would like to jump in, go right ahead, is how is branding in cannabis, whether in execution of the branding or marketing, or the challenges associated therewith, different from branding in other industries, say cars or a lot of everyday advertising that people see on TV?
I guess I can take it. I mean, it's interesting because, like you mentioned, we are in cannabis now, but being in business for 22 years, obviously was before all of this. And when we first got into it, it's funny because a real estate client brought us into this world. And when you get into it, you're not sure. Well, what do you mean we can't do this? The roadblocks are so many, and I feel like as soon as we figure out what that roadblock is for that day, then tomorrow there's another issue for a client that we have to work with. So, I mean, I would just say that. It's difficult. It's definitely difficult, and it's constantly changing. I mean, Diana can probably weigh in as well too, but I think that the roadblocks are tough. I mean, just what people don't understand, not in the space, is just to do business, how difficult it is. And so when you speak to somebody not in the space, they're like, well, what do you mean? You don't have banking? You don't know. We can't advertise. We can't, there's so much that we can't do. And so I think that's really what makes it just so difficult. And also every day it's a different roadblock.
Yeah, understood. Regulatory environment. Diana, do you want to chime in here on some of the differences from other things? Oh,
definitely.
Eric?
I can go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to chime in too, and not to interject, but marketing in the space is very different than all other industries, just, as was already touched on, all of the limitations and, and our access to traditional marketing vehicles that most CPG brands have access to, especially ones that aren't confined to state borders. So, brands like the three of us here that are trying to operate in a multitude of markets, accessing consumers, we have to be very careful with our messaging, with our images, with the things we say. Us as a brand strategically, and I think Old Pal as well, we set up an entire separate entity, completely non-plant touching for merchandise and apparel that allows us access to, those traditional marketing vehicles like Facebook advertising, Google AdWords, et cetera, that's traditionally, not accessible to cannabis brands.
I'm gonna wait in. Yes, it is a very struggling industry, but it's also like rewarding. And it's like those challenges like push us like as marketers and our creators, like how are we gonna connect to consumers? How are we gonna put these brands out there so that we can get more people to consume cannabis and educate them on the wellness aspects of the plant? So it is a daily struggle in different aspects. But at the same time, it's like, my experience has been like, it's been challenging me to be like, how can I create these safe areas for the consumer, and how can I help brands put themselves and connect and get that connection with the consumer that they're trying to attract? So that's what's different from other industries, but it's rewarding at the same time.
All right. And obviously a big part of branding is messaging. So, I would ask for the entire panel, how do you tailor your messages? Are you tailoring your messages to specific groups? When do you do that? And also, when do you make the decision to go broad, and when is it appropriate? So if anybody would like to comment on messaging and tailoring of messages.
I'd like to comment on the previous question, and that I think that branding and marketing for cannabis isn't that different than branding and marketing for anything else. You're just trying to create an emotional connection to the product that you're selling. And so what I think is really important for cannabis is that the product is of the highest quality that it can be. The primary stumbling block to greater mainstream recognition is overcoming that stigma and overcoming years and many decades of misinformation and horrible propaganda about cannabis and the people who use it. And I would say that while there's a lot of challenges to overcome in the space because it's highly regulated now, I'll take it any day over what I was dealing with, 15, 20 years ago, when I was worried about getting arrested and constantly looking over my shoulder. And I was in fact arrested at one point for cannabis. So I think we're making tremendous strides, and that's something that I'm thankful for every day. I'll take getting my Instagram deleted over getting thrown in jail. So I think we've come a long way.
All right.
One thing I would agree, and on the PR side, on the public relations side, when we're talking about branding and messaging, there are so many limitations for what we can do when we're creating. We're following, let's say the brand's already been established and we have our key marketing messages, but it can be a challenge on the PR side. I mean, never in my whole career, right? Okay, we talked to journalists and specifically on the hemp side and with CBD products that in brands that we've worked with, we've had to, we pitch media and we want them interested in it. And obviously it was very different, 4 years ago, right? We're in a different place now. And so I think so much of what we all do is still education, whether it be, like you said, on the product, where it's from, what it's made out of, and then, the benefits. But, here we go into this space and we're pitching media and we're still educating mainstream media, right? So we're pitching for, consumer media. And the first thing they say is, great, what can I use this product for? Technically we can't make a claim. And so never in my career, am I representing a CPG brand, and I can't say what you can use it for. If it's a car, it's 0 to 60 and whatever. If it's a condo, it's all the features and amenities. So, that was a challenge to kind of wrap our head around, is how do we get the coverage, get the media interested in it, and make sure that they understand our key marketing messages without getting into trouble. And so that's a kind of can be a catch-22.
Yeah, it is in a lot of ways, seems like fighting with one hand tied behind your back due to the regulations and the way they limit marketing and what you can and cannot say. With respect to messaging and tailoring your message towards specific brands or certain market segments or certain customers, if someone would like to speak as to what are the pluses and minuses of that, how effective is it, or is a broad approach, cannabis is for everyone, and that's your messaging all the time. Which approach do, whether it's on the service side or on the brand side, which approach is favored and why?
So I'll take that question. So at Old Pal, sort of like, sorry, am I echoing a little? I hope it sounds okay. On the brand side of things, what we do is, because we're in the value space and because we want, like, the ethos of Old Pal is cannabis for all people, right? So that's the approach that we take. I think I am. Do I need to move? Is my internet connection maybe? Can you guys hear me okay? Is it weird?
Sound fine.
It's okay. Okay, sorry about that. But anyways, so as you know, for our brand, that's our messaging from like the core of who we are. We're a shareable company. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. We want to be, that brand that comparable. And I hate, of course, making the alcohol comparison, but like we want to be the 18 pack of Bud Light that you bring over to your friend's house, right? So that's how we structure our messaging, is very shareable. We want it to be more about the community and the people. So that's how we're able to do it. Where I know a lot of other brands are different and they do need to segment things a little bit differently. But for us, it's very much about all people, utilizing flower and weed however they see fit. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. So that's how we do it.
I think I'm going to jump in. I think it's got to do a lot with your strategy. What's the mission of your brand? Like, what do you want to accomplish at the end of the day? And then it's just, for us is, for example, we want to educate the women on the wellness aspect of the plan. And it's just not about making their life, improving their lifestyle, but it's also like, if we can get to women, we can educate them. They are the gatekeepers. They're the ones who decide what goes into the household. So we can get them to try the products and do it in an approachable way and get them to consume. It's only like, okay, they'll try the product, but they're also going to refer it. And that's how we end up growing the business. So it's like having a clear message of what your mission is, connecting with your consuming, learning how they want to be taught, and giving them, like for us, is giving them that surprise. Like we created this amazing magazine where we talk to women and they pick it up and they're like, oh my God, this is cannabis. I didn't know cannabis can be portrayed and showed in this way. So it's whatever your mission is, and like have a clear goal of where you go, and that's going to help you know how you're going to talk to. There is all the legal stuff and things that don't let us speak freely, but there's way to do it. I mean, I find it that if I make it as normal as possible and we just add a little bit of a touch of cannabis, is like, okay, they feel like this is good for me. So understand your message and work towards that.
So work off
On your mission, yes.
destigmatization, and then lowering the, I guess, anxiety around it that
Yes.
some people may have as to approachability.
Even a lot of consumers are still in the kind of closet. So understand that they want to feel as normal as possible when they're consuming, where they're talking about it. So I have all this conversation. For me, it was even hard, like starting to have these conversations with people. Yeah, I do a cannabis magazine. And sometimes you get this attitude. I was just like, yeah, it's just cannabis. And having that conversation. And that's how we spread the message. And that's part of my mission with my magazine. And that's where we're going. And that's what we talk every day. Like, just make it normal. Like, we're regular women. We're all diverse women. We're all type of women. And cannabis is okay to consume. Just education is key when it comes to your message, I think, especially in cannabis.
Eric, would you like to jump in?
Sure, yeah, I totally agree. Our brand is a little different than Old Pal. I think they have a brilliant model and that shareable model. But for us, our angle is a little bit more direct, and our approach in terms of building a brand around our community around our brand is pretty critical. So having a really clear understanding of who we're trying to speak to and how we need to speak to them has been really critical as how we're entering the market, and in being a brand that's trying to sit at the intersection of sports and cannabis, and using Ricky's voice and platform to really be something that can push change and try and normalize the use of cannabis with athletes and sports. I think we needed to really understand who we were trying to talk to. And that not only, helped form our messaging and our branding, but also really helped formulate, our product roadmap and helped us be pretty focused as we entered multiple markets at the same time without getting, too broad and, unauthentic.
One thing I would add about messages is that with MSOs, you can't have the same message in every single state because it depends on whether it's a patient or, what are we talking about? Is it medical? Is it rec? And so those messages, the overarching, description of the brand also sometimes has to be adjusted by state rules, requirements, regs, and all of that. So, it's always great to have kind of the positioning of what that product is, but sometimes the positioning doesn't work given the state that you're in. So we do have to oftentimes tweak what that is, based on the state that we're, working within or that we're pitching to the media.
Yeah, and the biggest example that jumps to mind between trying to balance, are we medical or are we recreational, is what you see with Columbia Care and Cannabis, where they, almost have two competing identities and are transitioning to go from one to the other. So it very much is a challenge to live in two worlds effectively as you expand across multiple states. With respect to messaging, I did want to go to Elise at Binsk. Binsk, when I was looking at everybody's website, has one of the most beautiful websites I've ever seen. So if you would like to launch into, some of the messaging that you do through the website and some of the strategy associated with that.
Yeah, the idea behind Binsk is for higher living. So it's positioned as a premium brand. It's packaged beautifully. It's appropriate for gift giving or special occasions. But the idea behind for higher living is that it's just a way to elevate your lifestyle, to make every day a little bit special and just a little bit higher than you usually might be. So that's the idea behind that specific tagline and that message. I would like to say that when we're operating in a medical state versus in a so-called recreational state, that even though the customer base is different, they have different concerns, a lot of use is overlapping. Like a lot of people who think that they're using for purely recreational purposes they're also getting medical benefits that, even though that's not their primary motivation for using cannabis, it could also be helping them sleep. It could be helping with a variety of conditions. Obviously stress is a killer. So anytime that people are using cannabis to de-stress or to relax at the end of the day, I happen to think that there's just over layering of those two specific use cases. So that's kind of how I like to approach it.
All right. I guess beyond messaging, I'd like to talk about media and certain types of messaging. Options certainly are constrained within cannabis, but that said, have you found certain types of media to be more effective than others or reach a different user group? And you kind of scale up depending on, what type of customers you're attracting or what type of client you're working for. If anybody would like to expound on any of those points in terms of types of media and reaching customers.
I mean, I can jump in. I do PR. So, on the public relations side, we're constantly having to, put that together and to kind of go out, accordingly. So it's a little different maybe than some of the, the branding, the experts here, but, PR is kind of its own thing. And, in Florida, it's patients and, there's just some of that. And it's interesting because for folks that are in a rec state and then you're in Florida or you're in another medical state, it is just it is different. There are nuances. And so we're just, always keeping that in mind. And sometimes we have to remind folks that, hey, that's not really appropriate for the state because of that, and so, I kind of focus on the PR side just because that's primarily what we do, although, we do some branding and marketing, but, so my focus is always kind of on the PR and, not calling it, that it's a patient in Florida versus, a customer, that sort of a thing.
Does CBD, because I noticed you had some CBD customers on your client's website, does that allow you more freedom and, an ability to do different things and different types of messaging and different mediums?
I mean, we can't make a claim, so that's tough. I think that just in general, I'm sure we all can agree that the market is very, very flooded now. Journalists, their perspective, and a lot of them that we speak to, it's like, oh, not another CBD brand. How is it different? So when we first started it, the education component was so much bigger for media, right? I mean, and whether you love her or you hate her, when Kim Kardashian is having a CBD themed baby shower, you've probably gone mainstream. Whether or not you like them or not is not the point. There was a big educational experience, let's call it, with that, even with the media. So quick example is, again, whether or not you like the Kardashians, that's not what I'm here to debate, but you're able to kind of leverage some of those opportunities. And at that time, which was, quite a few years ago now at this point, you're thinking, okay, extra TV, celebrity TV, that's all they do, right? They cover the celebrity, whatever, reality stars. And so many of them said, we are not allowed to touch this. Corporate says we're not allowed to touch it. And we're like, you're whatever, insert, magazine show, national show. I'm like, it's Kim Kardashian and you're not covering her and this is what she's doing. So I think that was really interesting, where we've seen now there's obviously been a big switch from that, where now they're willing to take putting Facebook and social media aside, because that's a whole nother topic, but we are seeing a lot more acceptance with people that are willing to take advertising now, where they didn't 4 years ago. And so, it's definitely gotten better in some ways. Again, social media is a different beast, but it's like, if they weren't going to cover Kim Kardashian and CBD, when were they ever going to cover it? So it's getting better, but that was kind of a rude awakening for us, where we're like shocked that they weren't going to cover it. But there was a directive up at the top at the time, we do not cover those products. And so little by little over the last few years, they need the ad revenue. So you start seeing when, things are tough, times are tough. And if you've got clients who are willing to pay, then now they start, loosening the requirements, or, the roadblocks, really.
Well, since you opened the door by mentioning Kim Kardashian, I'd like to throw it to Eric. Obviously the man behind your brand, not quite as good at football as Kim Kardashian, but he used to be pretty famous and well-loved in South Florida, and still is.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about association with, a specific, personality or figure, be it entertainment or sports, and what that means for the brand, and, some of the things you can leverage and some of the things you have to be mindful of.
Definitely. And I think this kind of plays right into the last question too, in terms of the type of media and marketing that we're, doing, and having I hate to refer to him as a figurehead, because he's so much more. He's such an intimate part of our business. But obviously having someone like Ricky as involved in our business and kind of leading the charge for us, we've really leaned into PR as, a major marketing vehicle for us, and specifically mainstream PR. And, it's a blessing that we have Ricky, that has been, has enabled us to really reach major mainstream media, whether it's, Bill Maher on HBO, or potentially something, on one of the late shows. So, leveraging his likeness to be able to get our message, nationally, internationally, has been a huge growth driver for us. And, we're only in market since November, and we've already made a lot of headway, just, utilizing his likeness and his platform. But, like you said, celebrity brands as a whole typically have had a rough go of it, specifically in the cannabis space. So, that was a major thing for us, right out of the gate, was making sure that we weren't lumped into that, green rush category of celebrities kind of chasing the dream, and, just throwing their name on something that there wasn't much really value behind. And, while cannabis is, technically no different than other industries, I think the consumers are a little different in that they are much more into authentic connections to the brand, less so, the whims of celebrities pushing things. So, a lot of celebs have entered the space, and it's not enough for someone to rap about liking weed to then come out with their own weed brand and have it be successful. And I think Ricky being the consummate advocate that, has essentially gone from a villain to a visionary has, really been critical for us. And again, we've only been in market for about 3.5 months now. And, the initial reaction from consumers and retailers alike has been, that we aren't just another celebrity brand, that he, brings with him a much different authentic connection to the plant and to his advocacy than just, chasing some dollars. And, that was the major pitfall for us to avoid, was getting lumped into that terrible category, I think, that has plagued the industry.
All right, thank you. And so pivoting from, sponsorship, endorsement, association with individuals, a number of the brands, that we have represented here, Binsk and Old Pal, for example, have brand partnerships with other cannabis companies throughout the country as part of the distribution of their products. Elise or Kendra, if you'd like to discuss what goes into some of the analysis of deciding on your brand partnerships and who you associate with, and what that means to your brand and your ability to reach customers in the various markets that you're in.
I guess I'll go first here. So the big thing for us is, at the end of the day, like, we are a business of people, right? So we spend a lot of time vetting operators in different states in order to understand which one is going to mesh the best with us. We've had some missteps, of course, things happen, it's cannabis. So, of course, not everything is going to be perfect, but that's what we're really looking for in a partnership. People who are really professional, who get back to us in a timely manner, which you would think that, like, somebody operating a big, manufacturing or farm indoor facility, whatever, would be really eager to. But, there's some interesting players out there. So you just have to be careful with who you're working with. We take a long time to tell them exactly what our vision is for the brand and figure out what sort of alignment is there for us before we decide to go into a partnership with them. So it's a long process. We have gotten much better at it in the last year, which is really lovely. So we've had a lot of new states come on board recently. We just launched Pennsylvania and Arizona. And then, of course, we have Ohio, Massachusetts, Michigan, California. Nevada was our first partner. So lots of good things have happened in the last year. We've gotten some really good partnerships, but it is a process. You need to make sure that you like the people that you're working with, that they have all of the capabilities in actuality, that they're not just telling you that they have certain capabilities, that you actually go to the facility and make sure that that is actually what they say is happening. And then, get into the territory, or I'm sorry, into the state, and figure out what people are saying about their products, how things are in the market, in that next market. So it's quite the process, but, we have some good people on our team who are willing to, get on airplanes and just figure all this stuff out. So that's how we do it. And we're just very careful, and we vet people for a while.
Amen. Oh.
Yeah, I
So
would echo
much.
that. Obviously, you want to be working with good people. You want to make sure that you're going to get along and they're professional and have a good reputation. I would say for Binsk as well, because we're manufacturing products across every segment and in a variety of form factors, that we want to make sure that they have the manufacturing capabilities as well as the cultivation capabilities. And just that quality control piece is so important. Just making sure that they're going to be able to nail the formulations and that it's consistent across every state. So yeah, always challenges to work through and things to troubleshoot, but yeah, it's been going really well for Binsk, and we're currently in 6 different states, including Florida, Colorado, Nevada, California, and recently launched in Michigan and Washington.
I'm gonna add on to that. I think all of what they said, I agree, but I think it's also important to find people who not just you're working with, but they're rooting for you. They want you to win. They're just not finding a partnership where they're gonna get something out of it, but where we're gonna get something out of it. Because there's people like that, oh, we'll partner with you, but they're just thinking of their own interests. But if you find that partnership, that collaboration where we're both rooting to win, I think that's much better. That's something to look into it. Like I said before, this is an industry where we have to root for everybody winning. The more we all win together, bigger it's gonna get and there's gonna be more growth. So.
All right. Just to circle back on the topic of messaging associated with your brand. I've seen a lot of things, and granted, we've been living in times that are rapidly changing, where some marketing messages or branding messages, sort of leaned into the lockdown that, most of us were on for, parts of the past couple years. And that was a pivot in messaging to topicality, to recent events, as opposed to consistent messaging, the same message across all time periods. Both from the marketing side and even from the brand side, what goes into the considerations as to, favor consistency versus being topical with your marketing messages and getting your brand out there? Duree, do you have anything? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is one of my favorite topics because at Old Pal, our big messaging is shareability, right? So you take that like core thought process of wanting to be shareable in community and being with people, and all of a sudden the pandemic is making it so that nobody can be with each other anymore. We're all like, what are we gonna do now? Like, this is not gonna work, right? So what we really leaned into, we came out with a product that was like 2 half-gram joints in a single tube, and we changed messaging a little bit and kind of steered away from the shareability and all of our stuff going out. It was more like, stay safe. We had to stay on top of what was happening in the world. So the 2 little joints, like the whole slogan was like, one for me, one for you. Like, we can kind of smoke together like 6 feet apart, and we can each like have a joint together, but like far away. So it's really, we did definitely have to pivot because our entire being that is Old Pal is about sharing weed and being a community. So that was fun, but luckily things are kind of on the up and up again, and things are opening up, and we're on the right track again with our shareability message.
Thank you. That was actually really great.
Well, I'd like to just add, I think obviously we've all had to, I'm going to use the P word, pivot. We've all had, we're over that word, right? But the reality is that we all had to adjust the way we were doing business. In Florida, here you have, a federally illegal product that's just been deemed essential and can be open. I mean, great. I mean, that's a great thing, I think, overall for us in Florida. I also spend a lot of time in Colorado and have an office there as well. Obviously, tale of 2 different worlds, right? So, very different. But the point is that whether it's COVID or hopefully, whatever else is coming, I think you're always having to pivot and change up your marketing messages. First of all, you'll get stale if you're not, right? I mean, you have to have your core key marketing messages, but things pop up, and there are great opportunities to tap into something really cool and fun, and and you can have fun with it, still be professional even in this industry. But I think that's what makes this industry so fun, is the risks that people are willing to take, tongue in cheek, and just some of that like coolness factor. That I think brands are willing to extend themselves a bit more than maybe brands in other industries, willing to take a little bit more of a risk. I mean, you talk about Ricky, talk about being authentic. It doesn't get more authentic than Ricky. I'm a doll fan since I'm born and raised here. So, a sad doll fan, I have to say. It's big. You feel my pain if you're a doll fan, but I think, and so each brand, looking at what you have, do you have a Ricky? What do what not? Most brands obviously don't have a Ricky with, the authentic factor of Ricky being Ricky, right? But what do you have, and can you lean into that? And then maybe there is a partnership or a celebrity brand that you're bringing on, or whatever it might be that you can lean into. And then that also changes your marketing messages. So, I think it's never, like I say to all of our clients, it's never, ever a one size fits all approach. It's always evolving. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything, but I think, when you stop and you become stale, I think you become irrelevant.
All right. So I guess with that, Duree, do you want to jump on the differences or contrast between earned media and paid media?
So I think everybody knows, I think most people know how difficult paid media can be. Certainly, you know, Diana can speak to paid advertising a little bit more. Certainly, I'm biased on, you know, PR being earned and, you know, having that third party endorsement. That's what I've been doing my whole life. And, you know, it does help. The clients do need that. And, you know, for CBD brands, it's very different. You know, we need the online clip. We want the link to the website to purchase. They can go on and purchase. So, you know, it is different if we're talking about an MMTC versus, you know, a hemp product, right? So I think, you know, it kind of depends, but I'm biased. I always think somebody saying that your product, your good, your service, whatever it is that third party endorsement is critical. And, you know, it can be as seen in, and you've got, you know, even, you know, you guys were talking about, you know, some of the, where Ricky had participated, some of the coverage Ricky's got, you know, and it's like as seen in, and he's all over the place. And so being able to leverage that third party endorsement of the product is a great thing, and leaning into it. And consumers like it. People think, oh my gosh, that's great. It just, you know, it's obviously very different if you're an MSO or you're, you know, a CBD brand, but I'm biased. I think that, you know, not paying for something is somebody else saying that it's great is always a good thing. But again, I'm a PR person. But that being said, you really have to look at all options. And so paid advertising is critical. Unfortunately, you know, the options these days are tough. And one day something works and the next day it doesn't. And, you know, who knows with Google what's going on and what words you can and you can't use. I mean, I think we like to say we have tools in our toolbox, right? So there's lots of tools, and certainly PR is a component of it, but, you know, paid is still really important. There's a lot of things people are doing. Diane, I don't know if you want to jump in on, you know, the advertising side and kind of paid. I mean, I think it's important to have a good balance of both, but we don't have as many offerings as, you know, other industries that have, you know, sky's kind of like the limit.
Exactly. There's not so many many ways to advertise. So like when you, for like example, as our publication is a nice way to like, it's an easier way to communicate and get in front of the consumer. So it is like finding those creative ways and to advertise and.
All right. Any of the brands, Elise, Eric, Kendra, have any thoughts or commentary around earned versus paid media and strategies arising from that, or, you know, opinions?
You need a balance of both, but kind of as everyone touched on, our paid media opportunities are pretty limited in our space. So, you know, again, we also have, you know, the Ricky, but, you know, that's also why we really leaned into, you know, public relations. You know, the third party perspective is really powerful, especially when you're trying to convey a message nationally, internationally. You know, that's really how we've been getting the reach. You know, major paid media has been pretty difficult outside of, you know, some digital stuff and retargeting, etc.
Yeah, we tend to skirt, I shouldn't say skirt, but skirt around some regulations by doing some like paid media stuff with our Old Pal Provisions line. So I know like Heisman has like their apparel line. We also do the same thing. We had a couple of like collabs. We did like a really cool album, Old Pal surfboard. We had an igloo cooler. So that's sort of how we've gotten around some of the regulations, and we can do some more interesting paid media and earned stuff. So again, same story, like definitely is a balance. Always great when you don't have to pay for something. Of course, I think we would all agree with that. If you have people doing the work for you, like, yeah, that's what we want. But yeah, that's how we kind of get around that, is we use some of our fun little goods to get some paid stuff done. So it works.
Elise, do you have anything to add?
Sure, yeah. In my previous life, I was working in cannabis media, so I have a lot of connections in that space and have done a lot of outreach and support for journalists. And it's just important to make sure that you get the products into their hands and that they have an opportunity to try it. So we're always circulating in our local communities and building relationships with journalists as well as influencers, and yeah, doing a variety of types of content marketing as well as PR outreach. And we've been recognized by Leafly and Westward. We participate in a lot of cannabis awards competitions. So yeah, just a vibrant mix of different things that get us out into the community and get our products into the hands of journalists. And that's been very successful for us.
All right. I guess this question is for the brands via Zoom. Is when you guys set out in terms of your brand, what goals have you achieved, and what goals do you still have to achieve with respect to your brand? So start with Eric, if that's all right.
Sure. I mean, we're really new, so we still have a lot of goals to achieve. As mentioned, we got to market just after Thanksgiving, so we're currently in 2 markets, Oregon and California. I would say major goals for us, some of them pretty lofty, it would be to kind of infiltrate some of the major sporting institutions, via NFL Players Association, and really utilize Ricky and his platform to help, really push change. But on a commercial side, I would really like to see us in, another half a dozen plus markets, heading out east, potentially with a multi-state operator. And I guess that's more short term.
All right.
I could keep going and going. We have a lot of goals, but I'll let everybody else chime in.
I'm sure everyone's goal at the end is world domination, but just short of that,
Right.
we'll assume that one. And
We
let
can
everybody
share.
else speak
We can
about the
share
other
world
one.
domination. I'll share world domination with them all.
Kendra, you want to jump in and talk about some of the goals for Old Pal, both achieved and on the horizon?
Sure. We're actually really excited. We have gotten into quite a few states at this point, like I mentioned, which is really exciting. Even some that we were a little bit concerned about, such as Pennsylvania, which their regulators are very, very difficult. Shout out to anybody dealing with Pennsylvania stuff right now. It is not easy. We had to completely change the look of our products in order to be compliant in Pennsylvania. So while in every other state, we've had, our beautiful Mylar bags that kind of like, they've all looked the same across every single state, Pennsylvania said, no, you are not allowed to use Mylar bags. And we were like, okay. So we were able to figure out a solution really quickly with still holding on to, the brand look and feel in Pennsylvania. So we're really excited about that. We have a lot more states that we are looking towards. We have definitely gotten some really good partnerships on the East Coast that have some good connections into other states. So Tilt Holdings, for example, they're a partner for Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. And so they have some other connections in other areas as well. So again, just really looking to expand, get a national reach. We want to be a national brand in every state that will let us get there. So, we're a pretty slim team. There's only about 30 of us on the Old Pal team, which is still mind blowing to me that there's so few of us doing so much and getting all this done. But yeah, we just want to get to more states. And again, we're here. We just want to provide the best weed for the best price for as many people as possible. So, we've even had some international conversations that we're really excited about. So looking to just expand, we really do want to be, again, hate using the alcohol analogy, but we want to be the Bud Light of cannabis. That's what we're looking to do.
I like how you ended on world domination. Elise, you want to talk a bit about Binsk and, in terms of where they've been, what's been achieved, and what's on the horizon in terms of goals?
Sure, yeah. So since launching in Colorado in 2015, the brand has expanded to 6 states. So we're aiming for, steady organic growth. We want to make sure that we can support the brands and opening up new states. So we want to make sure that we have appropriate resources to do that and not get overextended. So the goals include, more states, more stores, as well as launching the full suite of the product line in every single state. So we just recently launched soft lozenges in Washington because you're not allowed to have gummies there. So we had to change things slightly. And yeah, just adapting to the regulations in every state that we're in, similar to Kendra's experience with Pennsylvania. We can't have our fun, beautiful packaging in Florida. It has to be, just very plain, very like pharmaceutical looking packaging in Florida. So yeah, just adapting to those situations as they come up, and just continuing to expand and develop new products.
All right. I think it's about time to throw to questions. Take on some questions. Rob, I'll leave it to you, giving you the computer screen. Or this is the one we want to do. All right, so this relates to California. What are some of your favorite paid media opportunities for cannabis, specifically in California?
I mean, I personally like to support alt weeklies. You know, we try to get hyper local with our approach and really support the communities that we're in. And alt weeklies provide very valuable service for the people who live in those communities. And we want to support local journalism. So that's something that I like to do.
I mean, one thing I would say, whether it's California or any state, is, and you kind of touched on it, is, you know, having that corporate social responsibility. You know, that's not paid advertising directly, but there's so much that can go into that. You might be underwriting, you know, a sponsorship for an organization or Last Prisoner Project or whatever that might be. So while it's not paid advertising, I think there's a lot of supporting of corporate social responsibility efforts. It could be a beach cleanup. It could be, you know, it has to resonate and make sense with the brand, but we're always looking at, you know, authentic ways to give back. And a lot of times that includes a paid sponsorship or something along those lines. So, you know, we always want to look at it by client based on what are their key marketing messages, what is their overall goal. And I mean, I think if we all stepped back and tried to remember what our brand goals, for those of us that, you know, were working with specific brands before the pandemic, you know, at that year when we started out and thought, okay, we're in for a normal year, you know, all the goals and marketing messages and everything changed. So I think making sure that you're always taking a look at what you're doing, and that can be the corporate social responsibility. We love corporate social responsibility because it's a win-win, and we love supporting journalists. So, you know, we won't continue if we don't have, you know, the journalists out there that embrace what we do. But I think whatever it takes that we can pay for, you know, is beneficial. And everybody loves their swag. So certainly if we're doing an event, you know, having the swag, you were talking about surfboards and, you know, all sorts of, you know, swag items. We love doing that in our office, and people love it. So, you know, I think when you're talking about paid, you know, that's a huge bucket that we're talking about. But I think there are a lot of ways to have it make sense for the brand, your brand, whatever it might be, and have it make sense based on, again, what your key marketing messages are and goals are. So, and also I think that's that evolving process that we've talked about, where, you know, what you did last year isn't that, you know, we always have to dial it up. I feel like every year, you know, you have to, you know, even just within yourself, within your own brand, you have to just always dial it up. So it's like, how are we going to get, you know, to the next level? And so, you know, paid is always something that we're looking at, you know, whether it's underwriting of something or for the limited options that are out there for, you know, paid advertising. You know, I think you just have to look at all those options and evaluate what makes sense for your brand with events that you might have going on, or launching of secondary brands, or bringing in, you know, celebrity partnerships. So, you know, I think the other thing too is sometimes you throw money behind, you know, maybe there is a celebrity partnership that comes in that, you know, a lot of the MSOs have celebrity, you know, brands that they're working with. And so we like to look at that as they come on. You know, sometimes that's a separate campaign just around that announcement. I mean, obviously in Florida, we can't really do that, you know, given seed to sale and all that. But, you know, outside of this state in Florida, there are a lot more opportunities for those, especially that are rec, to have a variety of things going on that are it's not as tight as, you know, some of the, you know, medical only states.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add on paid opportunities?
I would just say, in light of all of that, like what we've actually been putting a lot more of our dollars into is things that have to do with our retailers, right? We're trying to put more money into having wonderful bud tender events. We just had one up in Seaside, California, where we rented out an arcade, bought, you know, a couple beers for all the bud tenders, because you can't roll joints in this area, but we bought catnip, and we did a joint rolling contest, and the winner was able to get a prize. And it was like bringing all of these bud tenders together from various retailers in the area, which was awesome. If you guys don't know, we have a 1948 school bus that we lovingly call the Cosmic Collider. And she has been rolling around California specifically, sort of like bringing the party to the dispensaries, sort of a thing. So that's been a ton of fun. So we're really concentrating a lot of our dollars in actual stores and dispensaries. We want, that's where the customers are coming. So if we can't use all these outside paid advertising things, then we're going to go to where the customers are and put our money where that is. So that's our plan of attack right now.
Same. We, when we launch, again, we're new, but when we launched, we had a lot of our budget allocated towards brand awareness, just purely consumer driven marketing events. And, really quick on, we adjusted and, are putting a much bigger focus on trade marketing and bud tender education stuff in the store for the consumers, because, obviously limitations with paid media, it seems like a lot more bang for our buck in the store and with the bud tenders than just, hoping and praying somebody sees some of the messaging that we can actually pay to put out there.
All right. Do we have another question? Any questions from the group?
Anybody?
All right.
All right.
In that
Just a little
case.
housekeeping before we go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our panelists. Those of us in Florida that decided to make it, and those of us who joined us remotely, really appreciate you here. Join us for our next panel, which is going to be cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and cannabis. I think it might be back here again. That's going to be on the 23rd. That's going to be moderated by VJ, who's in the VIP room back there. You see him, and Dan thinks I'm pointing at him. VJ realizes.
I thought that. I was like, that's
So,
not big.
that's going to be on the 23rd. And then please, everybody, the conference, June 3rd and 4th, it's going to be, what is it, 5th annual? Sixth annual Cannabis Conference Expo and Cannabis Lab Conference and Expo. That's was the 2019 one. To me, was the last time that we got to do it full. And I think this one's going to be 10 times bigger and better. So let's make this a great event. Get ready for that. That's going to be split between Mono Wynwood and the Marseille. And then I think that's all we have. So thank you to our panelists, both hosts. It was great to learn. And everybody have a good night.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, still got beer.